The cold seeps into your bones differently in December when you're scraping by. It doesn't just bite, it judges. For 8 years, I had been the ghost of Sterling Thorne, the colossal finance firm where dreams went to die quietly in cubicles. But I wasn't in a cubicle. I was Leo Maxwell, the night janitor. My official title, the one etched on the bland plastic badge, was custodial specialist. But the truth was simpler. I cleaned up the spilled coffee, the crumpled ambition, and the silent tears of people chasing the kind of success I had already walked away from. Or, more accurately, been forced to walk away from. They thought I was just a tired man with a mop. They saw the faded overalls and the weary shuffle. They had no idea that beneath the grime and the exhaustion, Leo Maxwell held a bachelor's, a master's, and half a PhD in financial law from the very university the company's elite bragged about attending. They didn't know that 8 years ago, before a crippling lawsuit that wiped out my inheritance and reputation, a lawsuit orchestrated by a competitor. I had been one of them, a promising VP on the fast track. Now, I was the man who emptied their bins. The hum of the office air conditioner was my constant companion, a white noise backdrop to my simmering resentment. But this December, the resentment wasn't just simmering, it was boiling, thanks to a man named Marcus Thorne Jr. Marcus. The name itself felt like polished brass and hollow promises. He was the CEO's nephew, freshly installed after graduating, or so the office gossip went, from a prestigious European business school. He was arrogant, lazy, and utterly inept, but he had the last name. And because of that name, he had stolen my life, or rather, the life I was trying to rebuild. I wasn't supposed to be a janitor forever. I had spent these 8 years not just cleaning, but observing. I studied the firm's balance sheets left carelessly on desks. I analyzed market trends from the discarded newspapers. I listened to the late-night strategy calls through the thin veneer of conference room walls. I was quietly taking a distance learning certification in risk management, pouring every spare cent into paying down the last of the legal fees that had bankrupted my family. I was ready to apply for a junior analyst position, a massive step down from my old life, but a critical step up from this one, a path back to the light. Then came the annual holiday promotion announcement. This year, Sterling Thorne was creating a new role, Chief Innovation Officer. It was a strategic position designed to modernize the firm, the perfect stepping stone for someone experienced, sharp, and ready to make a significant impact. I applied secretly, using a pseudonym and submitting my real, if 8-year-old resume, along with a groundbreaking proposal for a new AI-driven risk assessment model. I knew my work was superior. I knew I was qualified. 3 weeks ago, the email dropped. The new CIO was Marcus Thorne Jr. The betrayal was a physical blow, worse than any cut or bruise I'd sustained hauling heavy bins. It wasn't just the role, it was the mockery. They hadn't even bothered to interview outside the family circle. The firm was going to stay stagnant, led by incompetence. But then, the final, unforgivable humiliation. The week before the annual, mandatory, black-tie Christmas gala, I was polishing the boardroom table, the one where Marcus now sat, feet up, dictating emails to his secretary. He had a smug, self-satisfied look that made my blood run cold. "Leo," he called out, not even bothering to look up, "can you grab that mug? And while you're at it, polish this spot here. It's disgusting." I picked up the porcelain mug, its lips smeared with expensive lipstick. As I did, a stray piece of paper fluttered out of his open briefcase, landing silently on the plush carpet. It was a printout of his official CIO appointment letter, stapled to his background check file. A cold, calculated curiosity, the kind that only years of enduring injustice can forge, made me pause. I knelt, pretending to tie my bootlace, and scooped up the papers. The background check was boilerplate, confirming his graduation from the European Business School, but underneath, A single, unassuming line of tiny print caught my eye. It was a note from the HR vetting team, dated 3 months prior. Degree verification pending. Institution unreachable during holiday recess. Proceed with preliminary hire per CEO request. Urgent. Pending. That one word was a hairline fracture in the foundation of Marcus's carefully constructed life. I spent the next 3 nights in the university library's basement, using the firm's discarded network logins, which I knew by heart, to cross-reference databases. I wasn't just searching for Marcus's degree, I was searching for the school. The European business school he claimed to have attended was a real institution, but a recent scandal involving degree mills and pay-to-play certifications had cast a long shadow over its less publicized online programs. A deep dive into the school's historical archives revealed the truth, a truth hidden behind firewalls and obscured digital records. Marcus Thorne Jr. hadn't just graduated from a subpar program. He hadn't attended the institution at all. The student ID number listed on his resume belonged to a different person entirely, a retired professor who had taught a single seminar there 20 years ago. Marcus's degree was a meticulously forged document, likely purchased from the same network that had nearly destroyed my own career years ago. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. The man who had stolen my promotion, who sat in the chair that should have been mine, who called me a janitor and told me my life was disgusting. This man was a fraud, a paper tiger, and he was about to attend the annual Sterling Thorne Christmas Gala, the pinnacle of the corporate social season, where he would be formally introduced as the new Chief Innovation Officer to the board and all the firm's most important clients. It was the perfect stage for his triumph, and now, I decided, it would be the perfect stage for his spectacular, career-ending collapse. I spent the remaining days of December not cleaning, but planning. Every mop stroke, every discarded confidential document, every carelessly keyed password, it all became data for my final meticulously crafted act. The hum of the air conditioner no longer sounded like judgment. It sounded like the countdown to the New Year's detonation. Marcus wanted a promotion? He was about to receive a lifetime sentence of professional exile. He wanted public recognition? He was about to receive public ruin. The final piece of the puzzle, the irrefutable evidence, was locked away, digitized and encrypted, ready to be deployed. The cold December air was suddenly invigorating. I was no longer Leo the janitor. I was Leo Maxwell, the architect of a slow, devastating seasonal reckoning. The days leading up to the Sterling Thorne Christmas Gala were a masterclass in slow, agonizing torture. Every employee was buzzing with festive excitement, but for me, the air was thick with the scent of pine and impending doom. Marcus's doom. My planning was surgical. I had compiled the digital evidence, the archived university records, the cross-referenced student IDs, and a sworn, notarized affidavit from a former administrative clerk at the European Business School confirming that Marcus Thorne Jr. had never been enrolled. The files were uploaded to a secure anonymous server, ready to be deployed at the precise moment of maximum impact. But before the final strike, I had to endure the season of Marcus's false triumph. The office decorations were lavish, a ridiculous spectacle of wealth in a city grappling with cold and poverty. Gleaming tinsel and perfect fake snow covered the windows. Marcus, sensing his newfound importance, decided to make my life, Leo, the janitor's life, a living hell. It was the petty revenge of a small man elevated beyond his capabilities. One afternoon, I was cleaning the atrium floor, painstakingly removing the muddy tracks left by the expensive boots of the executives. Marcus walked out, flanked by the CEO, his uncle, and 2 board members. They were discussing the upcoming gala and the strategic genius Marcus was supposedly bringing as the CIO. Marcus stopped directly in front of me, forcing me to halt my cleaning machine. "Ah, Leo," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, loud enough for the board members to hear, "Look at this dedication. Now, this is a man who understands the value of hard work, Uncle." The CEO, a stern man named Arthur Thorne, gave me a curt, dismissive nod. "Leo, I need a favor," Marcus continued, resting a highly polished shoe directly on the floor I had just cleaned. "My secretary is swamped with gala preparation. I need you to personally deliver a few boxes of branded Christmas gifts, you know, the cheap pens and keychains, to the warehouse across town. They need to be checked against the inventory list. And make sure you're back before the night security shift starts. I trust you can handle a simple inventory, right? It's just counting." He wasn't asking, he was commanding, and using my current status as a punchline. He was deliberately giving me a menial, time-consuming task to reinforce the hierarchy. The board members chuckled politely. "Yes, sir," I replied, my voice flat, empty of emotion. My eyes, however, held a cold promise he was too blind to see. I spent the entire day hauling the boxes. It was back-breaking labor, but I used the time wisely. The warehouse was rarely visited. While verifying the inventory, I used my concealed encrypted tablet to run one final sophisticated security check on Sterling Thorne's network. I was looking for vulnerabilities in the presentation software used for the gala. I found one, a dated, unpatched system error in the main ballroom's projection network. It was the perfect entry point. The night before the gala, the humiliation reached its peak. The firm held an informal, mandatory Christmas spirit luncheon for all staff, from the mailroom to the executive suite. It was a chance for the executives to show their gratitude to the lower-level staff. As I was standing by the punch bowl, Marcus approached, a glass of expensive champagne in hand, his face flushed with mock generosity. "Leo, you're still here!" he exclaimed, loud enough to draw the attention of a nearby cluster of analysts who had always treated me like part of the furniture. "Listen, Uncle Arthur and I were just talking about how much you contribute. So, as a gesture of holiday appreciation, I wanted to give you this bonus." He didn't hand me an envelope. He dramatically pulled a crisp $20 bill from his wallet and, with a flourish that made my hand tremble with suppressed rage, dropped it into the pocket of my dusty work overalls. "Get yourself a nice Christmas dinner, Leo." He smirked, his eyes glinting with malice. "You earned it." "No, wait." He pulled back the 20 and replaced it with a slightly crumpled 50. "Make it 50. You know, hazard pay for all the dirt you clean up after real professionals." The surrounding laughter was soft but unmistakable, a cruel wave of social contempt. My face remained impassive, but inside, the last vestiges of my old life, the man who believed in dignity and merit, shattered. He had reduced my 8 years of silent suffering, my expertise, my entire existence, to a crumpled $50 bill tossed into a dirty pocket. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," I said, the words tasting like ash. I watched him walk away, feeling the heavy, suffocating weight of my disguise. He had not just humiliated Leo the janitor, he had publicly spat on Leo Maxwell, the former VP. That night, cleaning the CEO's private bathroom, I looked at my reflection in the polished marble. The weariness was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. The Christmas gala wasn't just an event, it was the scaffold, and I was the executioner. I spent my final shift running through the logistics of the event. The gala was held in the firm's main ballroom, featuring a massive LED screen for the annual year-end address and the presentation of the new CIO. My access as the janitorial specialist was complete. I was invisible, allowed everywhere from the kitchens to the main control room. I even had the master key to the projection booth, a small, forgotten closet near the ceiling. My final act of preparation was simple, yet crucial. The projection booth housed the main cables connecting the presentation laptop to the main server. While dusting the room, I subtly replaced one of the HDMI cables with an identical-looking pre-modified cable. This cable contained a small, inconspicuous, solid-state drive. SSD, loaded with the encrypted documents and a custom-written silent program. The program's sole purpose, at 8:30 p.m., precisely when Marcus Thorne Jr. would be introduced, the program would initiate. It would override the presentation software, decrypt the files, and project the irrefutable evidence of his forged degree, the university records, the notarized statement, and even a recording of the administrator confirming the fake ID number directly onto the massive LED screen. It would be a simultaneous, public, and undeniable data dump. The inversion of power was no longer just a desire, it was a scheduled event. I would walk into that gala as the invisible janitor, and walk out leaving Marcus Thorne Jr. as the most visible and most ruined fraud in corporate history. The cold season of humiliation was ending. The fire of seasonal vengeance was about to ignite. The Sterling Thorne Christmas Gala was the kind of event designed to make the poor feel poorer and the powerful feel invincible. Held in the firm's vast, ornate ballroom, it was a blinding array of crystal chandeliers, high-end couture, and the toxic smell of ambition masked by expensive perfume. I arrived precisely at 7, dressed in my standard attire, the same drab, faded janitor's uniform. My job that night was simple: remain invisible, anticipate any spills, and clear empty champagne flutes. But my real job was to be the quiet observer, the conductor of the ruinous symphony. Marcus Thorne Jr. was everywhere. He looked impossibly sleek in a bespoke tuxedo, flashing a predatory smile while shaking hands with clients and the board of directors. He was the king of the castle, entirely unaware that the walls were about to fall. I moved through the crowd, a shadow among the glittering bodies, collecting the discarded remnants of their temporary happiness. Each empty glass I cleared felt like a step closer to the final moment. I had to wait for the crucial time, 8:30 p.m., the formal CIO induction ceremony. At 8:15 p.m., I made my move toward the projection booth. It was dark, dusty, and smelled faintly of old electronics, the perfect sanctuary for the executioner. I had 10 minutes to confirm the link. I connected my simple encrypted phone to the modified HDMI cable I had installed the previous night. The green light on the cable flickered once, armed and ready. I disconnected the phone and returned to the ballroom floor, positioning myself near the back, by the staff entrance, where I could observe everything without being seen. Arthur Thorne, the CEO, took the stage at 8:25 p.m. The massive LED screen behind him, the canvas for Marcus's professional portrait, flashed the Sterling Thorne logo. Arthur's speech was long and self-congratulatory, praising the firm's successful year and the bright future ahead. He spoke about innovation, integrity, and the sacred trust they held with their clients. The hypocrisy was a bitter taste in my mouth, but I kept my face blank. "And now," Arthur boomed, his voice resonating through the ballroom, "the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to introduce the man who will lead us into the next decade. A man of unparalleled academic background, strategic genius, and deep family ties. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your new Chief Innovation Officer, my nephew, Marcus Thorne Jr. The applause was thunderous, forced, and deafening. Marcus strode onto the stage, soaking in the adulation, his false confidence blindingly bright. He went to the podium, waiting for the applause to subside, ready to begin his acceptance speech. As Marcus reached for the microphone, I performed the final, silent command. From my secure phone, hidden in the deep pocket of my overalls, I sent the encrypted trigger code to the SSD in the projection booth. The massive LED screen behind Marcus immediately glitched. The firm's logo dissolved into a chaotic swirl of static. Marcus paused, frowning slightly, clearly irritated by the minor technical delay. "Just a small technical hiccup, folks," Marcus chuckled, trying to recover the moment. "Must be Leo's cleaning crew knocking something loose back there." That casual, final insult was the cue. Suddenly, the static vanished, replaced by stark, black and white text that filled the entire screen, visible to every single person in the room. The entire board, the high-net-worth clients, the press, and the staff. Headline: Academic Fraud Exposed. Sterling Thorne's new CIO is a fake. The silence that descended upon the ballroom was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket. You could hear the sudden, sharp intake of breath from 300 people. Marcus froze, his hand suspended above the microphone. Arthur Thorne turned slowly, his face draining of color as he looked at the screen. The screen cycled automatically, displaying the irrefutable evidence, one slide at a time. Image: the official background check report, highlighting the line, "Degree verification pending." Institution: unreachable. Document scan: the notarized affidavit from the European Business School administrator, Marcus Thorne Jr. was never a registered student. Audio transcription: a text overlay of the recorded phone call where the university registrar confirmed that the student ID listed on Marcus's resume belonged to a retired professor. Comparison photo: a split screen showing Marcus Thorne Jr. next to the retired professor whose identity he had stolen, starkly demonstrating the forgery. Marcus finally reacted, his veneer of sophistication shattering. He lunged at the podium, knocking over the microphone, screaming, "Turn it off! Someone shut that damn thing down!" But there was no one in the projection booth to shut it down. The program was self-contained, designed to run through the entire sequence before shutting down the entire projection system. Arthur Thorne, meanwhile, looked less at Marcus and more at the crowd. The realization of the public shame, the irreparable damage to the firm's reputation for due diligence, hit him like a freight train. He didn't just see a nephew exposed, he saw a hostile takeover opportunity handed to their competitors on a silver platter. The board members were already scrambling, pulling out their phones, trying to manage the fallout. The press photographers, who had been capturing Marcus's confident grin seconds earlier, were now taking pictures of his horrified, defeated face. The screen finally went blank, plunging the stage into darkness, but the damage was done. The air was thick with whispered panic. I stepped out from my shadowed corner, holding a stack of dirty napkins. Marcus, seeing me, his mind racing for someone to blame, pointed a trembling finger. You did this, you filthy janitor!" he shrieked, his voice cracking with desperation. "Security! Get this lunatic!" Before anyone could move, a new, calm voice cut through the chaos. "He didn't do it, Marcus." "I did." Every eye snapped to the source of the voice. It was me, Leo Maxwell. I dropped the stack of napkins. I walked toward the stage, my movements slow, deliberate. The focus of the entire ballroom now fixed on the man in the dirty overalls. I stopped just short of the stage and looked directly at Arthur Thorne, the CEO, who was staring at me with bewildered horror. "The evidence wasn't gathered by a lunatic, Mr. Thorne," I said, my voice steady, professional, carrying the practiced authority of a former executive. "It was gathered by Leo Maxwell. I designed your firm's AI risk model 8 years ago. I applied for the CIO position, and I've been cleaning your floors for the past 8 years, watching, waiting, and knowing exactly where the weaknesses are." I pulled a crisp, laminated ID card from my inside pocket. It wasn't the janitor badge. It was a certified card from the prestigious Professional Accounting Association I had maintained my membership with, listing my credentials. "You chose a fraud over merit, Mr. Thorne. You put incompetence above integrity. And now, at the cost of your public reputation, you will pay for it." The inversion was complete. The janitor had become the prosecutor. Marcus, the newly crowned CIO, was now a publicly ruined criminal, being led away by 2 stunned security guards. His triumph had lasted exactly 5 minutes. As the CEO collapsed into a nearby chair, shell-shocked, I looked at the disgraced Marcus being escorted past me. He wasn't a threat anymore. He was a cautionary tale. I walked toward the main exit, taking off my filthy overalls and tossing them into a discarded linen bin, the final symbolic act of shedding my disguise. Underneath, I was wearing simple but well-fitting dark clothing. It was New Year's Eve, not Christmas, but the gift was the same: rebirth. Outside, the cold air felt sharp and clean. I had achieved my seasonal vengeance, not for a promotion, but for dignity. The job wasn't cleaning anymore, it was rebuilding.